Hey, welcome back, everybody. Good Saturday. Hopefully, we had a wonderful week out there. Got an update here for you on a couple important things in the weather department, including an increasing chance and near likely chance of tropical storm development in the Gulf of Mexico over the coming days, and that could impact the United States on down the road through this week. So that's going to kind of be the big thing we talk about in today's video, but we also have other things to talk about, including this big air mass change over the continental United States and another area to watch out into the Atlantic that could try to form here a little bit further away from home going through this week. Now, if you're a regular viewer, you're obviously probably wondering, where have I been the past week? If you missed it, last Friday night, I actually lost internet at my apartment. We had a crazy lightning storm in Charlotte, and I did not get it back until yesterday evening. So I went basically exactly a week without internet, which, as you can imagine, would make recording YouTube videos and posting them quite a challenge. But luckily, got it back. I'm up bright and early here this Saturday morning to give you an update because, again, things are picking up. Now, the good news about kind of the timing of that was things kind of died down there for a little bit, and all that activity that we expected in the tropics kind of didn't really materialize. However, again, I think if there was ever time to get the internet back, it's probably now, because chances are increasing for a tropical storm or tropical depression or maybe even a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, again, within the next 7 days. And this is going to be one of those kind of homegrown systems. It's not really going to form till it gets close to us, and kind of a setup that we've seen pretty often here for these United States tropical storms and hurricanes over the past several years. Now, if you're new here and you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you like it, and comment. Let me know where you're watching from and kind of what you've been up to the past week and what you're up to this weekend. Personally, you might be able to tell I've got my green on and I've got the lights behind me nice and green. My Charlotte 49ers are going to take on UNC Chapel Hill this afternoon, so I'm going to go ahead and drive up there here momentarily after this video to go and watch that game. So that's kind of what I'm up to. Again, let me know what you're up to in the comments. But with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into that forecast because, again, long enough intro and we've got a lot to talk about here. So just to kind of give you a broad view of the Atlantic here to start off, and again, we're going to start with the tropics, as I think that's kind of the main thing to keep an eye on currently. We've got a couple areas that you're going to notice. Obviously, you notice this big spin here, and you're probably wondering, well, what's the name of that feature? Actually, that is not a tropical system. That is just a good old-fashioned kind of frontal low pressure. You can even see kind of how it's become occluded with this line of showers and storms on the colder side, and then this warm front on the other. So just a good old-fashioned low pressure swirl there. We've got another one here over the North Atlantic. So both of these storms, while they look impressive on satellite, actually are not tropical, thus are not going to get a name. And the next name on the list is Francine. Hard to believe, how crazy hyperactive this season was supposed to be. And not to say that it won't end that way, but we're actually getting close to the record for the longest lull of any tropical activity near peak hurricane season. So again, I'll be the first to tell you, I thought the season was going to be very active. I won't say I lied to you because I never lied to you intentionally, but the forecast definitely could have been a lot better for the past couple of weeks. But with that said, again, I don't want you to let your guard down just because things haven't panned out so far, because as we look at satellite, it might not look like a lot right now, but this area right in here into the Gulf of Mexico is now up to at least a 60% chance of formation by the National Hurricane Center. I'm recording this at about 7:30 a.m., so they're going to update it here by the time this video comes out. So it very well could be 70-80% chance of development within the next 7 days, but as of the time I'm recording this, it's a 60% chance. But either way, greater than 50% of that will likely develop, and we're going to zoom in on it here in just a second. But again, this is the main area we're watching. Another area we're watching out here into the intertropical convergence zone, or the main development region of the Atlantic. That one also has a shot of developing here over the next 7 days. And again, we'll take a look at both, but let's go ahead and dive into that area in the Gulf right after we take a look at our main map from the National Hurricane Center. So believe it or not, this area right here, last time I recorded a video, we were talking about a wave out here near the Antilles, and we were all looking at the Caribbean saying, well, this, the models are picking up on it. This could be the one. This could be that big one that we've kind of been waiting for this season, given the forecast that was, in hand. But it never developed. Again, ran into some dry air and some shear conditions in the Caribbean, and now over the Yucatan Peninsula, and about to get into the Bay of Campeche. And I even talked about in the video. Now, again, I'm not going to tell you I got this forecast right, because, again, I thought this was going to develop in the Caribbean and then kind of move up into the Gulf. That never happened, but I did mention it's possible this could just run right into Central America, and that's basically exactly what happened, and is now getting into the Gulf of Mexico, where conditions are becoming generally more favorable for tropical development over the next 7 days. Now, behind it, we have another area to watch. This one is running about a 30% chance of development within the next 7 days. Again, the models are picking up on that one as well. Good news, much further away from land. We'll have a lot more time to track it than that orange area on your map. But all things considered, still quite a quiet map for what you would expect here. Again, right near peak hurricane season, but there are areas that we are watching. Again, specifically that area in the Gulf of Mexico, I think is going to be the bigger concern through the coming days. And if we take a look at this on satellite, again, nice big zoomed in view here, it doesn't look like much right now. And there's kind of almost two areas. Again, the National Hurricane Center is watching right in here, this area that you'll notice of kind of some shower and storm activity into the Bay of Campeche. That's the area that we're watching, but even to the north here, we've got a secondary kind of low-level circulation with some pretty impressive thunderstorm activity this morning. So we need to watch both of these. Either one could develop, but it's all kind of in the same general mix of thunderstorm activity that we're watching here through this part of the Gulf of Mexico. But again, nothing crazy on satellite right now, but you will notice nonetheless, we are getting some shower and storm activity into the Bay of Campeche, and likely by the time you're watching this, that low-level circulation getting back over the open water here. In fact, you can already see what is probably a little bit of some mid-level circulation right in here. So this is kind of, I don't want to compare this to any other storms by any means, so I'm not going to actually name a name of a storm, but we've seen this set up plenty of times before so far, within the past couple of years, where we get these homegrown systems right here into the Bay of Campeche. So climatologically speaking, this has legs for sure, and on the models, it also has legs. I'll show you some model runs here. So I'm going to kind of start doing this at the beginning of this part of the video. Anytime I show you these model runs, I want you to know meteorology is not just looking at models and assuming that's the forecast. There's a lot more that goes into it. Meteorology is much more reading the model, and I should also add knowing how to read the model, because anybody could kind of load up a website and find the area of lowest pressure and just kind of read it and follow that. But you really got to kind of look at a lot of things here when forecasting weather. You got to know what the models are good at, what they're not good at, and what exactly it's telling you, and if what it's telling you is lining up with the output that it's showing. So again, I'm going to show you a couple hurricane models here. Or, I say hurricane models, these are global models, but they do normally pretty well with hurricanes. And watch right in here into this region. Again, there's kind of a couple areas to watch. We've got this area of more enhanced thunderstorm activity south of Louisiana, and then this area that we're a little more concerned with here into the Bay of Campeche. So this is Sunday evening into Monday. At this point, that area of circulation is over the open water of the Gulf, and it's going to try to get going here into the Bay of Campeche on the GFS, and does so by the start of next week. So this is Monday afternoon, and we've got a tropical depression or storm developing here in between Texas and Mexico here, and it's a pretty big area, but starts to get its act together and deepens into a pretty impressive little tropical storm here, and gets up near hurricane strength. This is Wednesday morning. We've got, again, a strong tropical storm there near Brownsville, moving up the Texas coast, again, flirting with hurricane status here by Wednesday into Thursday, and then making a landfall there near the Texas-Louisiana border here by Thursday morning. So, this is not that far from now. Today's Saturday, and we could have a storm by Monday or Tuesday, and then we could have direct landfall, less than a week from now. So, this is something that I don't want to say snuck up on us. We've been watching this area for a while with potential tropical activity, but definitely something that it's not like we're watching a storm form way out in the Atlantic. This is one, again, forming close to home, and then again, it moves up through the Mississippi River Valley into next weekend. So, that's the latest GFS. Obviously, something we want to watch, and definitely shows development. Now let's take a look at the European. This is tomorrow morning, Sunday, and you're probably a little confused. You're like, well, this looks like it's way further ahead into time because here's the storm. That's actually different. Again, here down to the south, we have two areas that we're watching. One to the south is the one that NHC has that area of interest tagged, or it's even an invest now, I believe. And then the area to the north is kind of another area that is still in this general complex or gyre of thunderstorm activity that is going to also try to get going. And in fact, the European gets kind of that northern segment going a little bit here into the end of this weekend and into the start of next week, and gets near a named storm, near tropical storm status by Monday. But other than that, doesn't really develop this into a storm. Now, what it does, and I think this is almost a guarantee at this point, is it does either way bring this big plume of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico up into Texas, Louisiana, and then eventually across the southeast through the Gulf Coast states through the coming weeks. You'll notice all of that rain working on through there. And I'll be honest, I feel like we've been talking about rain in Louisiana, Texas, and kind of these surrounding areas for what has felt like a month. In fact, maybe it has been. Let me know down there if you're watching how much rain you've gotten, because I feel like every time I load up the map and look at this, it's raining down there. This is just going to add more to it. So again, the European, it doesn't quite develop a storm like the GFS, but either way, brings that plume of moisture northward, so we will see impacts in the rainfall department, if nothing else. The Canadian model, a little bit closer to the GFS. This is Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening. Again, first NFL Sunday of the year here, so I don't know why I said that, but anyway, it is. Either way, though, low pressure here developing in the Bay of Campeche, getting, again, near tropical storm status here with that closed low-level center of circulation by Sunday afternoon, and then pulls northward like the GFS, and very similar to the GFS by Wednesday morning. We've got a tropical storm off the coast of Brownsville, Texas, bringing some impacts, bringing some onshore flow here through the Gulf coast of Texas, bringing some strong gusty winds. And plenty of rainfall. But again, rainfall would probably be the biggest concern here. And then, pretty identical to the GFS by Thursday, brings us up through the Houston area as a tropical storm. Now, the Canadian's a little bit weaker than the GFS. GFS was getting up near Category 1 strength by that final landfall. Canadian is much more in that tropical storm realm. But nonetheless, models showing some agreement here. I'll show you the European AI model. Again, kind of a newer model, but hasn't done a terrible job so far this year. It's had its moments, we'll say, but either way, it's good to look at. So again, similar to the other models, look at that, low pressure developing in the Bay of Campeche into a tropical storm, and then eventually into a strong tropical storm. And the timing is similar here, a Thursday early morning. In fact, this is even overnight Wednesday into Thursday landfall, although further towards the east here, towards Louisiana. So again, I'll show you one more model here, the Icon, just so we can kind of run through them all and, say I didn't skip out on anybody. And here we go. Icon agrees with all the other models. We get this area to kind of develop into a tropical storm and then make landfall somewhere in Texas or Louisiana. Icon quicker as well. This would be Wednesday afternoon. So, again, with about a 995 millibar low. So I guess kind of the big takeaway here is most of our models develop this. Now, the European was the only one that didn't really develop this, but again, kind of did in a way. But either way, all the models bring this moisture up north through the Gulf Coast states, many of them as a tropical storm, at the very least as an open wave with a lot of rain. And main impacts right now, I think, would be rainfall, number one. Two, we could see some onshore flow. And then number three, the wild card would be wind, I would say. We'll have to see how much time this has to get its act together and what ingredients it's going to be fighting. And speaking of that, let's take a look at some of those. So latest GFS, again, this was the strongest of all the models. If we take a look starting at humidity, or just kind of where we have dry air and where we have more moisture content that would be more favorable for tropical development here. Again, look at this big band of moisture. We've had this stationary front just kind of parked over portions of the Atlantic and down into Florida for a while now. And this is exactly what's happening. This is just an extension of that that is also kind of combined with an area from the Caribbean to get us, this kind of area thunderstorm activity. Now, what will eventually happen is this will try to move north. And again, it's got a pretty good pocket here of moisture in this part of the Gulf. Now, you'll notice to the north, we've got a very dry air mass through Texas, Louisiana, and into much of the southeast, and even a little bit of dry air here stuck into the Caribbean that may try to infiltrate the storm. So not a perfect environment, but it definitely has its nice own little closed off pocket here that it could work with, I think, going through this week as it tries to develop. But eventually, again, as this moves north through Texas, it's obviously going to depend on how strong it is and how tight that core is. But I think at this point, this is when dry air will likely try to funnel into the storm. Again, we've had a very nice air mass try to move into the country here, and we'll take a look at that here in a moment too. But as the storm tries to interact with that air mass, it'll likely, again, ingest some dry air, which would be good news for strength. But then this eventually could lead to a pretty impressive severe weather threat here in this part of the country through the Mississippi River Valley by the end of next week. So a lot more questions and answers here. Again, that's dry air shear. Again, things look relatively relaxed, but you will know the jet stream, again, has dipped quite far south here. So our subtropical jet is becoming relatively strong here over the southern states of the United States. So that could cause impacts. But over the storm here, upper level wind pattern is very favorable for some tropical development here, at least through the beginning of the week. So it'll depend, how well does this get its act together? How quickly does it get going? That will really play a big role in how strong it can get. get. But, hurricane status, I would say, is not completely out of the question here. I will also say it's not the most likely scenario, but I do think it is possible. Right now, though, I think most likely forecast would be a tropical storm of some intensity, whether that's weak or strong. Again, we'll need some time to kind of watch it here, but I do think chances of tropical storm in the Gulf of Mexico are definitely increasing. And we'll take a look at some ensembles. This is the European, not very impressive signal at all, but we'll just have to wait and see. Again, some of them do develop it. Some of them move this up near Texas and Louisiana as a tropical storm. Again, though, either way, we're going to get rain out of this. It's just a matter of does it get the name Francine. The GFS, on the other hand, really is quite more confident that this will get the name. And you'll even notice a couple members in here. I know it's hard to see, but we've got a couple of these brighter colors indicating some of the GFS ensemble members do develop this up near hurricane status, but the majority of these members are under tropical storm. And again, I think that's the most likely scenario right now. So we'll watch it. Again, we know it does not take much in the Gulf of Mexico to go from something that doesn't look like that big of a deal to something that could be a little bit more worrisome. So we'll watch it again, but that's the latest on our Gulf system. And oh my goodness, that took 15 minutes to get through. Sorry, I just looked at the time. So we're gonna have to speed things up a little bit more here. But the second area that we're watching here in the Atlantic, here we go. It's kind of just this big area of the main development region or the intertropical convergence zone that is seeing some thunderstorm activity. And there's a chance that part of this could try to break off in the coming days and try to move up towards the north and west. And some of our models do that here. I'll show you the latest GFS and the latest European. Starting with the GFS, again, look at that low pressure out into the main development region of the Atlantic. This is getting into, about the middle of this coming week, seeing that low pressure develop, but still pretty far from anybody and not really harming anyone through the next week. Now, after that, again, this could try to move towards some land here. I think, again, this is getting 7 to 10 days from now. This is about next Sunday. Again, we've got one area here, even one behind it that tries to develop and is moving in the general path of potentially some of the islands here or the United States. But the good news, again, that's very far on down the road. We've got plenty of time to watch it. And we take a look at the European model. There's that storm trying to develop out there. And I know I'm kind of speeding through this, but again, tries to develop it, but doesn't do much. But I will note, does have two areas like the GFS did, one here and another here in about 7 to 10 days or so. So again, I don't think that one's going to cause any impacts in the next week. After that, we'll see what happens. But that's kind of the latest there. Now, quickly, I will show you the ensembles for this. And again, a lot of European members try to develop this into something, relatively weak, though, on most of the models here for the European and its ensembles. The GFS, similar story, maybe a couple members that get a little bit stronger. But again, within the next 10 days, very few members bring this over land as a worrisome system. But again, we'll watch it and keep you up to date. All right, that is the latest on the tropics. Let's talk about what's happening back home now a little bit, because we do have a very nice air mass moving in, and you can see this beautifully on satellite this morning. Again, look at this big time cold front dipping all the way down, and just this nice, beautiful dry air that is kind of funneled in behind it. Again, that's really going to make it feel like fall, and that's kind of the big thing I want you to take away here on satellite. It's just that big front, and again, bringing some shower and storm activity with it through the coastal southeast, but behind it, beautiful conditions for most of us, and you can see that on radar as well here. Again, we're all clear for most of us, but let me rephrase that. We're all clear for most of us into the Midwest and through the Great Plains and through the Rockies. However, through the Southeast, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast, different story here. And in fact, I'll mention we had I don't want to say a tornado outbreak, but we had a couple of tornadoes work on through portions of New York State yesterday, which I don't think many people saw coming. And to be honest, I didn't even really look at it. I was kind of busy at school with some other stuff, but it's just goes to show this was a pretty potent system as it worked on through, I guess, was the main point of saying that. But this morning, I just left with some, showers and maybe a couple rumbles of thunder working on through Pennsylvania, New York State, into portions of Ontario and Quebec as well. But the bigger area of shower activities through the Outer Banks of North Carolina, down through Georgia, and then into the Gulf Coast region, where, again, that kind of a front is just continuing to sag all the way down here and bringing some enhanced precipitation. Also, I will mention, we've got some lake effect precipitation here through portions of Indiana and Michigan. And I think lake effect precipitation will pick up through the coming days. Through many of these regions, especially New York State and Pennsylvania, as we go in the coming a couple of days here to end out the weekend and start next week. Now, again, I'll just show you this as well, or dew point map here. You'll notice, look at these dew points crashing down into these lower values and moving southward. That's that front. It's on the way. Again, if you're not feeling the relief yet, you likely will here soon. And again, just quite a beautiful day on the way for a lot of folks outside of that morning rain. But by the time we get to this afternoon, many of us will get in on those nicer conditions. All right, current watches, warnings, and advisories out west. Unfortunately, we have been dealing with wildfires through Washington, Oregon, and kind of surrounding areas. So we do have some air quality alerts. We have red flag warnings. We have heat advisories. Same story down here through Southern California. It's going to be hot. Again, what goes up must come down in the weather. So generally speaking, when it's cool in the east, it's not so cool in the west. You can kind of see that perfectly on this map because we've got freeze warnings in effect for the northern part of Minnesota, and then frost advisories for northern Wisconsin, and much of Minnesota there. So again, the fall is on the way. Meteorological fall is already here. Astronomical fall is coming soon, and that change of weather has definitely begun with it. But other than that, no real dire, situations on the map this morning. We do have some flood watches I will mention down through New Orleans, Gulfport, and then into portions of the Florida Panhandle. Again, I said earlier, you folks have been dealing with rain for what feels like a literal eternity, and unfortunately more on the way with that tropical system that we discussed. All right, this afternoon, again, we've got a couple areas of some enhanced low pressure. Again, low pressure getting off the coast of the Carolinas. This, could try to develop into something tropical, but really the bigger deal is just the rain it's bringing right now and the rain it brought yesterday. So this is getting towards the noon hour, some leftover showers and storms through the Outer Banks of North Carolina and kind of areas east of I-95. By the time we get to this afternoon, again, also some enhanced low pressure. Here's our low, and here is our front here. Up into portions of southern Canada and into the northeast. Do not be surprised. Again, we saw it yesterday, could see it again. A couple of these storms could try to rotate a little bit here. We've got a lot of vorticity with this low pressure, and that could try to bring a couple of troublesome areas, but mainly some showers there with that. And then on the backside, look at this lake effect precipitation trying to show up here through Pennsylvania, New York, and even portions of Ohio there. And then again down through the Gulf Coast states, just that frontal boundary continuing to sag on through. We move this ahead into time, into this afternoon, into this evening. We've even got some snow up there for portions of Canada. Again, very cold temperatures in the upper levels. So that column of air, the average temperature of it's definitely below freezing from the surface to 500 millibars. And because of that, we're getting some precipitation there showing up as blue on the map and not so much green. So again, if you're watching in Canada and you happen to live up in that area, definitely let me know if you see some snow. But again, just a showery day through much of the East Coast, especially the Northeast, and getting into tonight. And then we wake up tomorrow. And again, still a couple showers left over here through the Northeast, and same story down into the Southeast, specifically coastal areas of North Carolina, South Carolina, and down into Florida. Going to have the highest chance of that rain for our Sunday. And then eventually that high pressure slowly scoots on through and should clear things out, I think, by the start of the work week. Now, dew point map, again, it's still kind of muggy this morning, but look through this afternoon. These dew points move through, crash that column, and by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, many of us start feeling that beautiful, nicer air. Now, a couple troublesome spots here, at least in terms of humidity and dew point. Coastal South Carolina through southern Georgia, Florida, and southern Alabama, still going to have some muggy areas, as again, that front's not going to quite clear all the way through. But for most of us, again, we're going to feel that nice fall air, and getting through Sunday afternoon, many of us hold on to it, but we will have to watch for the return, again, of some higher dew point values here through coastal South Carolina, and into southern Georgia, Alabama, and the state of Florida, as a little bit more of that moisture kind of gets brought in off the Gulf as high pressure, unfortunately, kind of moves it that way here through the isobars, you can see. So watching out for that, but all things considered, a beautiful day tomorrow for most of us. Temperature-wise, this is tomorrow afternoon. Many of us only getting up into the 70s here through the East Coast, through the Mid-Atlantic, the Ohio River Valley, even cooler than that into the higher terrains of the Northeast, only 50s and 60s. And then warmer temperatures back out west, obviously, where it is very hot, and then into the Great Plains as well. Tomorrow night into this is tonight into tomorrow. In fact, I probably should have skipped these maps. Again, this is tomorrow afternoon. This is Sunday's high temperatures. Sunday morning temperatures, probably should have started this with this, my bad. But a lot of folks getting down into the 40s, isolated 30s through the Ohio River Valley and the Great Lakes region. Again, probably the coldest morning so far this season for many of you. But other than that, again, just find your place on the map here, and that's what you can expect for tomorrow morning. All right, final couple maps I'm going to show you here, just kind of talking about the mid to long range. Again, right now, this is why it's so cold. This big time trough here in the mid levels. This is, anytime you see this blue and this kind of purple area, that's just an area of very cold air, which is forcing lower pressure and lower heights here. So again, just blue means cold generally on this map, red means warm, generally speaking. Now, not all the time, but on what you're seeing right now, it's pretty good correlation. So again, that cold air moving through the east, hanging around for a while. But as we get through the start of this coming week, things turn a little bit more zonal. And what I mean by that is all the isobars we're seeing here are more just east to west, and there's not much bending in them, or at least not very much strong bending. So things are going to slowly get a little bit closer to average as we work out this cooler air in the east through the week ahead. And that'll be something we can expect. But really the bigger question this week is just going to be what happens in the tropics. That's going to be the main story, I think, because after this air mass, things calm down through the United States, at least in the mid latitudes. Again, less mid latitude cyclones working on through and just more zonal flow. But that cold air will hang around for a while. This is this afternoon, well below average temperatures for many of us in the east. That continues Sunday into Monday, into Tuesday. And then by the time we get into Wednesday of next week, that cold air erodes a little bit, that zonal flow takes over, and a lot more of us are back to average or slightly above average. And then again, whatever is happening down into the Gulf of Mexico will be the big story. Could have cooler temperatures just due to good old-fashioned rain from that tropical system. I think that's probably a safe bet. Again, whether it's a tropical storm or just an open wave, it should cool things down a little bit. But again, the bigger story there would be the rainfall. And latest from the Weather Prediction Center here, within the next 7 days, a lot of rain on the way for you folks into the Texas and Louisiana Gulf Coast. Potentially upwards of half a foot. Isolated spots could see more than that. I would not be surprised at all. And then how far inland does that rain spread about a week from now? Again, a lot more that we'll have to find out there. But that's kind of the latest I got for you here on this Saturday. Again, I apologize I haven't had a video for basically exactly a week here, but we're back. We're good to go. Again, got the internet up and running, and unfortunately there wasn't anything I could do to fix it. So I just had to kind of wait for somebody to come out and fix it, which they finally did. So with that said, y'all have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Stay safe out there. Keep an eye to the sky, and I'll see you all tomorrow.